Hi, welcome to the list of top 100 Kenyans of the year 2020. And today we're honored to be interviewing Nairobi Senator Johnson Sakaja.
Yes.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And congratulations first on being one of the top 100 Kenyans of the year 2020.
Thank you. I'd like to know why. Well, I missed it. It could be good or bad.
Well, it's not bad. It's not bad.
Okay.
It's for the good things you've done this year. I think the most prominent news item that probably made you one of the most influential Kenyans had to be the CRA,
the revenue.
Yeah, the revenue sharing debate that was in the Senate, and I think you were on the front line of defending many counties that could have lost a lot of money.
A lot, yeah, and Team Kenya and all of that.
Yeah, Team Kenya
and the shenanigans.
Is this your day? Is this how how could you describe your year basically?
It's been an extremely eventful year.
Mm-hmm.
A lot has happened this year, including what you're talking about, that debate.
Yes.
I see new political levels. Many people were surprised or shocked that I could take a stand that looked like it's against the president, whose shadows I've been in since I started my politics.
Yes.
So there have been ups and downs, turmoil. There was the arrest.
I remember.
It's been a year of COVID. I was chairing that committee.
Yes.
So it's been a very interesting, honestly, it's been a monumental year in many respects, personally and in political life.
Let's talk about what has been happening here in Nairobi, because there's been a lot of politics in Nairobi because of the formation of the Nairobi Metropolitan Services and the Nairobi City Council. Both of those bodies seem to be reading from different scripts, and it leaves Nairobians at the mercy of whichever body decides to side with the people, or which in this politics that are happening at City Hall and at State House. Where do you find yourself in the middle of this?
It's been an interesting turn of circumstances. I remember at some point last year, when we were considering the issue of transfer functions, remember the governor was encumbered by a court case.
Yes.
And the MCAs were mulling over an impeachment process. And at that point, I was against an impeachment because I felt that it would plunge Nairobians into an unnecessary by-election.
Yeah.
Because there was no deputy governor. The governor refused to put a deputy. And so we said, for the interest of Nairobians, what would be best is to have a situation where some of these functions are transferred to the national government, for Nairobians to get services. That was really the main thing.
Yeah.
As the governor deals with this court case, and it was supposed to be for 24 months. And that is actually the current situation. NMS is only running for 24 months since inception. I think the problem is that once the governor signed the transfer, then he felt that they're taking more than what he signed for. And there's been that back and forth in terms of budget, in terms of resources, which really, at the end of the day, is Nairobians that lose. We've raised those questions in the Senate, and we need that to be resolved, because at the end of the day, Nairobians really care about primarily that they are served. The taxes make sense. NMS started off on a very good footing. In the first 100 days, they were able to achieve a lot, especially in the CBD, in some areas like Mukuru, giving water to the informal settlements.
Yes.
And also they have their flaws. So as senator, my work is to oversight both NMS and the county government to make sure that they still keep the eye on the ball and they deliver to Nairobians until the deed of transfer ends in the next 24 months.
So then what's going to happen when the deed of transfer ends? Because it was only valid for 24 months.
Yeah.
So when you were coming up with this, or when you were part of the process that created NMS, did you foresee a long-term situation where after NMS is disbanded, what is going to happen?
You see, ideally, you need to have a county government that can perform and can deliver, because we have devolution.
Yes.
We've devolved services from the national government to the county government. NMS came because of failure to deliver those services. Now, we don't foresee a situation where we always have failure. And I think we can get it proper the third time round. The first time, Governor Kidero had his challenges, Governor Sonko has had his challenges. And so we said that, okay, let NMS come and help sort it out, because we need the goodwill from the national government, additional resources from the national government, and then after that, let's give it another try and have the county government fully delivering those services once you've dealt with a lot of what they're calling cartels. And sometimes cartels is just an excuse people use, when they can't sort out a problem. But we said, let us not have a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And that is why when BBI initially came out, the first proposals, I was against those proposals. that sought to make Nairobi permanently under the national government, because the Nairobian has a right to devolution like anybody else across the country. And so you don't solve a temporary problem of one governor who's not delivering or another one by a permanent solution and throwing the baby out, with the bathwater.
With the bathwater.
Yeah.
So I see there's a fair point you made. You can't solve a temporary problem
with a permanent
solution.
Yeah.
Then would you, seeing all of this, seeing the failures that have happened, probably, and the challenges that before Sonko Kidero faced, and now Sonko that is here, the problems that he's facing, did you ever sit down and consider maybe I should run for governor and just do this myself?
Of course, in 2016 I was vying for governor before the 2017 election.
Yeah.
And you know what happened within Jubilee.
Yeah.
We had Peter Kenneth, we had Sonko, etc. And I saw the political landscape at that point. It was my first elective, my first election to go to the ballot. I was a nominated MP before. So I made the decision to go for senator at that point. It doesn't mean that I still don't have dreams for this city. I have a vision for the city still. I had my manifesto. In fact, we wrote the current government's manifesto of the county government. We wrote in this office. And where we see Nairobi, we still see that Nairobi can still achieve many of the things that we need to achieve. So we'll be considering, again, as we move towards 2022, whether, again, to go for governor or to stay in the Senate. That's a decision that I'm going to make.
So you haven't settled on whether you want to run for governor?
No, I have not made that decision. Because you see the folly that many elected leaders do and make is, as soon as you get elected, you start looking at the next election.
Yeah.
I still have some time in the Senate, and I want to continue delivering as senator. I want to continue interacting with Nairobians as their sitting senator.
Yeah.
And I'm not ready to become a candidate now. Because once you make that announcement and that decision, then you stop seeing your work now. Everything you do is about the office you're going to vie for.
Yeah.
So if I go to Kariokor today, I'm going there as a governor candidate, not as a sitting senator.
Yeah.
If I go to Buruburu or Kibera, I'm going there as a candidate. And that is all what I want. I want to continue serving, still a senator, without clouding my judgment of what needs to be done today with tomorrow's ambition. The time will come. Yeah, we're still 2020, we have 2021. 2022, we have all the way till August. So in 2022 is when you make a decision and an announcement with a few months to go. But for now, I'm still serving. I was given a mandate by close to 1 million voters in Nairobi. 1 million people went and ticked Sakaja. They still want me to deliver, and I still have time to deliver on my promises as senator.
Well, we'll come to what you have done as senator, the bills you've been part of as senator. But I want to ask you about one of the issues that NMS has introduced, and it's not the first time this has happened.
Yeah.
It's decongesting the CBD. They have suggested that all matatus be removed out of the CBD. Yeah. There's a few stages that are being constructed. There's one right across the road at Railways, at Rail Park. Do you think this is the right move? Do you think this is the solution that we have been waiting for as Nairobians, that at some point we won't have congestion in the CBD?
Yes and no. Number one, the problem of congestion needs to be addressed in a holistic manner. And I've said these simplistic knee-jerk answers don't sort it out. When Governor Mike Sonko banned matatus, I went to court. He banned them from coming into town because he had not provided the alternative. Yeah, and I remember that time you'd find very elderly or sick people. I remember seeing a pregnant woman. Yeah, dropped all the way before Globe. At the side that down there.
Yeah, I was part of that. I did a story where we went with a man from all the way from around City Stadium, and we had to walk all the way to Nairobi Hospital.
Imagine going to the hospital. So you can't do that. You have to think about those people, children, going to school. Luckily now there's no school. But sick people going to Kenyatta, all the way from City Stadium or from Desai, walking all the way to Green Park to get a matatu. It wouldn't work. So before you provide that, you're supposed to have dealt with the alternative, that once we drop you at City Stadium, or if we drop you at Desai or at Green Park, then there is a vehicle, there is a bus or a tram or something, a BRT bus, that then takes you round within town for free because you had paid to get to that place. Until we see those buses, I will oppose that move, because then you have not created a solution. Yeah. So you first look at it holistically. The problem in Nairobi, we shouldn't be elitist to think the problem in Nairobi is matatus. It's the poor people. No. You find so many private vehicles, only one person in his vehicle coming into town. One person. Yet a matatu is carrying 30 people or 14 people, or a 33-seater. Who is the problem? The vehicles. You find 10 vehicles with 10 people, one vehicle with 30 people. The problem is the private vehicles, not the public vehicles, you know. So we need to create a public service transport system that, number one, looks at the interest of the majority. We need to have BRT. We need to have a mass transit system, yeah? Such that then it becomes unnecessary for me to use my personal car to come into town or to go around Nairobi. I have many friends in New York or in London doing very well in Wall Street. They don't even own cars because their public transport system is efficient, it is clean, it is reliable. You jump onto the subway, you jump onto the train, you get into a bus, and you're there on time. And that is what Nairobi needs. Yeah. So we've seen what they're trying to do with the commuter rail system. That is, you know, it's good. But there was an entire proper plan for Nairobi transport, which needs to be done. Yeah. We need to have a heavy duty gauge train that comes all the way from Thika Road all the way to Ngong. You need to have one across there, you know, from Wayaki Way down Mombasa Road. Once you've done those two with the new overpass of the road, you know, going to the airport, and a radial that goes around the city, and the plans are there. We spent 300 million as Nairobi to do it. The Japanese gave us 200, Nairobi City Council gave 100. Just implement that, and traffic jam will be forgotten. And you'll have a more holistic solution, and you'll have cyclists, and you'll have, you know, bus lanes, etc. Done. But knee-jerk solutions don't sort it out. Why do people have to come to town? Yeah. Before, when I was a kid in Nairobi, you'd get a number 48 that goes all the way from Huruma to Kileleshwa. You don't have to terminate in town. Yeah. Number 842, you know, would go all across from one side of from Kibera to the other side to Dandora. Yeah. The city center does not need to be a termination point. It just needs to be part, you know, number 6 going all the way across. That is what you need in terms of public transport. So ultimately, you cannot have a situation where public service transport, the only thing public about it is a road. The provision of public transport needs to be done by Nairobi County government to a great extent. And then we'll find space for matatus to deal within the estates, because the train won't get you into your home. You know, the mass transit bus, the BRT won't get you into your home. And there's space for everybody within that ecosystem. Yeah.
All right, let's talk about your time at the Senate. And one of the bills you've introduced is here, the startup bill.
Yes.
There was a lot of talk about it. I've seen you do a few talks on online with the tech community, the startup community in Kenya. What did you hope to achieve with the startup bill? What was the inspiration behind it? Why did you decide, let me sit down and craft a bill which will specifically look at the startup ecosystem in Kenya and around, in Kenya basically?
At some point I was in San Francisco, which is Silicon Valley. And I was being asked, why is it we're seeing a lot of innovation coming from Kenya? Not just Africa, Kenya. Amazing innovation, and that is different from what they're innovating. And they said, I mean, is this the new frontier? And I said, yes. We are now the Silicon Savannah. We have amazing ideas, amazing young people, and the innovations are groundbreaking, because as opposed to what we're getting out from Silicon Valley and San Francisco, necessity is the mother of invention. The coding tools are the same, but our needs are different. So we have solutions to get people water, to send money for school, etc. And they're meeting needs in society. The startup community is the next economic frontier for Africa. Just a few weeks ago, there's a company in Nigeria, Paystack, got money, $200 million for a solution that Kenyans have had for the last 3 years. But because of our legislative environment and our laws, our regulations that don't support startup, that company in Kenya, Wapipe, is based in Singapore. They could have gotten that $200 million before the company in Nigeria. Yeah, and many other people have been able, have had to go base themselves in Malaysia, I mean, in Mauritius, in different parts of the world, and not in Kenya. Yet the ideas and the human resource, the brains are Kenyan brains. Yeah, these guys, and they're my friends of some of these companies, have coders, guys doing their coding in China, because we've not created an incentive-based ecosystem to assist them to do it in Kenya. So I said, let us sort that out. First, recognize startups as a frontier. Recognize the best thing about our country is the human resource. If you look at Africa, Nigeria is imploding. It's only based on minerals, mainly. Look at Ethiopia, what's happening. Look at South Africa. No one wants to go and invest there anymore. Kenya is the gateway. And all these investors want to come into this country and put in money, in ideas and in businesses. So the startup bill creates a virtual special economic zone where all these young guys with ideas can get incentives to start up their companies. Investors can be able to be de-risked when they put money in startups, because the startups don't want money from government. No, it's not kazi mtaani or pesa kwa visiji kazi kwa vijana, uwezo fund. That's what they want. They want the angel investors to be de-risked to a certain percentage. If I put in $1 million in an idea that's coming from Kisumu of young people that are leveraging on technology, if it doesn't work, I should be able to know I'll get back my 30%. So there are many incentives we put in there, including the tax incentives, for them not to have to go through the competition authority when it comes to mergers and acquisitions for the first few years, and also for incubators, for those who want to come in and connect research and academia and the market to be able to thrive. And that is the next frontier for economy. So that's why I'm focused on the startup bill. It is going through the motions in the Senate. It will go to the National Assembly, where a lot more of the amendments will be brought in that deal with the money aspects. And then we hope to have that framework. We've studied many countries, the Tunisian law. We've looked at France. We've looked at different other countries that have been able to have a bill. And now the whole continent is looking at us, saying, let's see what Kenya does with the startup law.
So I want to ask you a bit of a technical question here, because I always wonder, when members of parliament are going to parliament, not all of them have a legal background. Okay, it's been proven that a lot of lawyers do go for politics because it has to do with legislation and they make laws. But what is the process like? Do you go to parliament and get trained how to write laws, or do you just find out by yourself? Do you just call up old MPs and ask them how are they doing it? Is there like a formal training process that you go through, or do you just learn on the job?
For most part, you learn on the job. Fortunately for me, before I got into parliament, I was involved in a lot of legislative processes, including the 2010 constitution. Now that time I was a consultant to parliament on boundaries and Article 89 and delimitation. So it wasn't a new thing for me. But for any other member of parliament, once you get in, and I thank the clerks of both houses, we have amazing staff. We have a proper legal department, where it's as simple as going to the legal department and saying, hey, I want a bill to stop charging people for Mira, taxes. And then a team will sit with you and say, okay, this is what you can do. This is what has been done before. We have researchers. So there's an amazing team. You can just go and say, okay, I want a law that does 1, 2, 3. And the researchers will let you know that can't work, or that's been done, or have you thought of this law that already exists? Or actually, yes, that's a good idea, and you work on it. Then they give you a draft. You go through it, and ultimately you sign what we call a legislative proposal. Now, your legislative proposal is taken now to a committee of parliament for scrutiny before it's published. And once they agree, then you have a bill. And you take it through the first, second reading until assent.
Well, speaking of laws and legislation, the BBI is proposing the Constitutional Amendment Bill 2020. And the BBI process, the whole process, I have done a couple of interviews where I've asked people their opinion about the BBI, but I want to get your side of things here. What did you think first about the BBI? What was your first reaction when you heard that the president and the former prime minister, they've come together and they've decided that we want to amend the constitution, so we can, here's a document that is probably going to be the solution, as they say, to our most pressing problems?
Number one, when the handshake happened, and that was in 2018, and the former prime minister and the president came together on the steps of Harambee House and said, let's bury the hatchet. Let's find a way to solve what has been the problem in this country, what has been largely a generational problem by their fathers, starting with their fathers, and that we take this country onto a path of reconciliation and coming together. I was elated. I was very happy. I've always believed that we have more that unites us as a country than what divides us. That we have a generation, and especially my generation, that is not focused or should not be focused on tribe as much as on ideas and as much as what you can bring to the table, as opposed to where you're from, what your surname is. And that's why even in that election, my slogan was Siasa Safi, because I am senator for Nairobi. I represent 43 communities. I'm not a senator for one tribe or for another tribe, but for everyone in the city.
And you were elected by different...
I was elected by everyone, from different tribes, different political parties even. And so I believed in that, and I was very excited. Of course, they lost momentum because they allowed politics to creep in after 2018, and it took too long. I think if in the first 6 months, when there was that, everyone in the country was happy, and we didn't let politics creep in, and they launched that BBI at that time, and changes, it would have passed a long time ago. But maybe there's a reason why they let it drag along until 2020. I still believe there's need for any initiative that brings us closer together as a country should be followed. I think our generation is one that knows its cause is to unite the people. Does the BBI solve all our problems? No. There's no piece of law that will make us love one another as a country. It can reduce the systemic issues that have led to violence after elections or a feeling of exclusion. But ultimately, it is a process. And I think it is a good step. I think BBI presents us a better deal than what we have. But every generation will have to keep refining our set of laws. We'll keep refining, at different points, there'll be an opportunity to make it better. So it is not a panacea. It is not a magic bullet that once BBI is passed, there'll be no joblessness, there'll be no corruption, and we love one another as Kenyans. No. But it is a step towards that direction. And I think it's a step that we must all embrace. There are certain provisions I was against when I spoke about that. For instance, Nairobi was being taken away in terms of its functions.
Yeah.
Article 1 says that sovereign power is exercised at national and county level for all Kenyans, but Nairobians were going to miss that out. Now that is back. Representation has been addressed. We'll have more constituencies in Nairobi, for instance. And all of that needs to be balanced with then the burden of the economy on the people. But I believe as a whole, if you look at BBI holistically, and you cancel out the noise, because some of the proponents have brought in political noise about 2022. I choose not to think about it in terms of who I support for the next presidency, but in terms of what is best for this generation and who is following. And for that reason, I support the BBI process, devoid of the politics around who supports it and who doesn't support it in terms of the politicians, but in terms of, does it make us a better people? Does it make our state
So you support
better?
the ideologies behind the BBI?
I support the ideology behind the BBI, the reason for the BBI, of bringing us together. And I believe it is a step towards the right direction. And I think we should pass it as a country. I don't think it will be contested. It should be contested. And those who are pushing for a contested referendum are on the wrong. There's no need for us to be divisive on a document that's supposed to be uniting us as a people.